Welcome to the Mitchell County Historical Society's final program of the 2023 season. I'm David Biddix, a member of the Society's Board of Directors, and I'll be your host. Our subject is an event that made national headlines in September and October of 1923. That's when an assault of a local woman by an escaped prisoner prompted a group of white men in the region to round up African Americans who were working on a variety of projects and force them to leave. Things conclude when the prisoner is captured and put on trial, being convicted of rape and sentenced to death by electrocution, with the sentence being carried out in December of 1923. We have 6 goals for this program. First, we want to tell you exactly what happened, documented in newspapers and other factual sources. Second, we will share brief biographies of some of the individuals involved that have been positively identified and their role in the events. Third, we'll lay out a timeline for the events and how they're interrelated with each other. Fourth, we will share new discoveries made during research on this project on other events that took place earlier in Mitchell County's history that echo what happened in Spruce Pine in September 1923. Fifth, we'll take a brief look at the context of culture and of race relations in our state and region in the 1920s and the big changes and struggles taking place at that time. And finally, we'll look into the outcomes of the race riot and how it's still affecting our region to this day. Special thanks go to Marcia Biddix and Jonathan Bennett, who both provided much of the research for this presentation. Both of them did yeoman's work in finding sources, images, and biographical information that have helped build a more complete picture of the riot and its aftermath. This project is something we started working on in depth nearly 2 years ago. The Mitchell County Historical Society had noted the upcoming 100th anniversary of the riot in Spruce Pine, and I wanted to do a program on it discussing the importance of what happened and address the misinformation that's floated around about it over the decades. While I can't answer every question, I'll try to give a clear, concise narrative of the race riot and of the major changes happening in Spruce Pine and the region at the time. We begin with a quick summary of what happened in Spruce Pine in 1923. On September 26th, John Goss, an African-American inmate with the North Carolina prison system, walked away from a road project he was working on in Mitchell County, making his escape. He traveled to several locations, eventually arriving in the Googes Creek section of Spruce Pine, where he allegedly assaulted Alice Thomas, the wife of Mac Thomas, and then escaped into the woods. A posse was soon formed to go looking for him, and, after an initial search proved fruitless, a group of some 80 to 100 men who had been looking for him formed a mob and went to locations where African Americans were working in the Spruce Pine area. At 3 different locations over 2 days, the mob rounded up those workers and marched them back to town, ordering them to board southbound Carolina, Clinchfield, and Ohio trains and telling them not to come back to Mitchell County. While the mob was armed and there was apparently a bit of drinking going on, the entire process was reported in newspapers as being orderly, if there could be such a thing, and there was no violence or guns fired at the African Americans during any of these events. One shot was fired by a mob member aiming at Spruce Pine's police chief, but it missed when someone struck the shooter's arm just as he fired. Town officials, alarmed at the situation, telegraphed Governor Cameron Morrison requesting help. Morrison responded to the request by ordering the North Carolina National Guard to send units to Spruce Pine to keep the peace and to allow African American workers to return and continue their jobs. Meanwhile, Goss was located by law enforcement near Hickory, North Carolina, where he was taken into custody and immediately sent to the state prison in Raleigh. He was later identified by Mrs. Thomas at the prison after she journeyed there at Governor Morrison's request. Morrison then scheduled Goss's trial on an assault charge for October 22, 1923. Some of the workers who were shipped out by the mob do return to their jobs in early October, but not many took up the state's offer of protection by the National Guard in exchange for their work. The Guard is then withdrawn from Spruce Pine in mid-October after the Toe River Fair completes its run, and everyone awaits Goss's trial in Bakersville. We'll stop right there and continue that discussion later in the presentation. Now, in our next section, we'll do a brief biographical sketch of some of the individuals involved in the events we just discussed.